All right, we will go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. Would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. East Sac County Schools empower all students to become productive, responsible citizens of an ever-changing global society. We'll take a minute now for public input on non-agenda items. Okay, and then we will move on to the secretary report.
So the balances are just kind of continuing the way they are. I didn't include the expense report that I have had in the last couple months just because it didn't change very much, but I will put it in there again next month since that'll be the end of the year and we can kind of see where we ended up. I did do some work on the Save and Pepple since we talked about that last month. Hopefully July I'll have a little bit more to report, but kind of what I saw is that our Pepple money has come in right on where we expected it, but what we've gotten is more Save money since that's based on sales tax revenue. I don't know if they just underestimated or if we've had more sales tax. So that's why we've had a little bit better performance in the Save and Pepple than we anticipated when they got those bonds. So cool. Also,
news.
thanks everybody who came to that special meeting.
I did not make it. I apologize.
It's
I
okay.
had remembered it like 4 times the week before, and then I just spaced it off Monday morning. Sorry about that. I apologize.
Well, I'm sorry everybody had to do that. So, any questions for me?
We have no correspondence, so we'll move on to the administrative reports.
Yeah, just had a couple things. So our professional development on June 2nd and 3rd, we had Solution Tree Garnet Hillman with us to continue on our journey in our work with standards. So kind of to sum it up, think about just there are standards that we're assigned to teach, and we're going to assess those standards, and then we're going to report to students and parents on those standards. That's really what standards-based learning and reporting really is. It's just bringing it down and clarifying what students are teaching or teachers are teaching and what students are learning. So a large portion of the 2 days was on assessment practices, and the teachers thought it was really worthwhile. Gave really good feedback, so a lot of good work being done there. So then that's the part of the new in the handbook. That's really the only change I have is I added this little blurb around the grading section. So we will report out 4321, and then you have the definitions there of what that will be, and that will be consistent K through 6. So that was something we heard from SIAC because they wanted consistency in how we report out, and so we've taken that to heart and we've worked really hard to get to that point. So. And then the other thing there's end of year activities. We brought back just some safety things as we send kids off into the summer. We're thinking about safety, so the bike rodeo resurrected that so that students were able to learn bike safety. And then for our 5-6 students, we had Ben Smith do a presentation kind of like they had here, just a little similar. And we plan to interact with him more on that. Just continue to educate our kids on the virtual world and the dangers that it can possess. So, and then I guess last we had a little celebration at the end of the year. We met our art reading goal, so we went well over our goal. So we'll look to up that next year. But the students really had a good time, and the team, and so it was good. So we have some thank yous in there. The Aquatic Center PTO. We had a really good lifeguard, and then our teachers were there with eyes on kids, probably more than if they go with their parents. So when they go with their parents. That's all I have, short and sweet. Questions for me?
Yeah.
No,
What about the handbooks, or is that later?
that's later.
Okay.
That's late.
Handbook is later. That's an agenda item.
Okay. All right.
So. Mr. Tedesco, you're up to talk about your report.
Yep. So one of the things I covered in there is what I'm at right now, where we're up in Minneapolis for 18 educators, including myself. So 18 teachers, including myself, are up at the PLC conference with Solution Tree, who Becky had come in for her PD days there. And we're going over what it means to be a professional learning community, really kind of digging into what the 4 main questions are there, which is what do we expect students to learn? How do we know they are learning it? How do we respond when kids don't know? And then how do we respond when they do? And each aspect, is something to dive into on its own. But, we're looking at that and then how to organize it, how to work together with these things and collaborate in a positive and meaningful way, and how you look at your data. And so it's been good. Today was our first day of actually going to breakout sessions and the keynote, like the full day of the conference, and it was pretty good for us overall. And we're looking forward to getting some more knowledge over the next 2 days. My next point that I had on there that I'll summarize was our end of the year wrap up and planning for the next year. So I kind of just listed out some things that I think went pretty smoothly there for us. Our teacher checkout process was really good in those last few days, and some of my teachers, because we didn't have an extra professional development, have what we're going to today that can count towards their flex days, their PD days, that they need to make up, the 2 days they have to make up, or they had to, submit what they were going to do for professional development, which we have all logged, and some of them have given me their, like shown documentation that they've gone to their events so far. Some of them still have to. But our teacher checkout process is really smooth. We have the schedules done for next year with everything covered the way that we needed to. I had to use one of our ag teachers and our middle school math teacher to cover some things with science and math. But we got everything covered, and teachers have what their schedule will look like for the next year, and they were able to review those. We had some room assignments and moves that people were getting going on pretty good before the end of the year there. I myself have to pack up my office. So I'm moving towards the front of the building, the east side of the building, into that office, closer to the superintendent's office up there too, in that east entrance. But all these things are essential for getting us through the end of the year and having a strong start to next year. Then my next thing is really some things that we're going to go over in the handbook. So I can reflect on them now, but if we're going to touch on it later, then I think that's pretty much all that I had then for mine.
Yep, why don't you chime back in when we get to that part, so.
Okay, yep.
All right, thanks, Tony. My report, I just got a few small things to talk about this month. Big shout out to Scott and his crew right now on getting the buildings cleaned and refinished. Down the hallway, my hallway down there, a lot of those rooms are getting painted, getting carpet. We kind of have a plan now that we're going to have kind of just school colors be our theme in the classrooms too. So got school colored carpet and walls, and instead of just having whatever a certain teacher kind of thought worked at one point in the last 30 years, there will be a consistent look to our classrooms going forward. So Scott has been painting a lot because our carpet layers come in here in a week or so. And so he has been painting a lot. So appreciate that. And when the rooms are done, you'll have to take a look at them because they're going to be a little more modern and just look a lot cleaner. So next thing, we've talked about this a little bit here at the board level. And I know Marcus brought it up about having a school resource officer. Part of the legislation this year allows school districts to share with towns or sheriff's departments or whoever to bring an SRO into buildings. And we were maxed out at that 21. Now the state moved it to 25. And there's even talk that school resource officers won't even count towards that max anyway. But with that change, ESAC now has the opportunity to have a sharing agreement with the city of Lakeview if we choose. And in talking with the police chief here in town, we believe that we can come to an agreement where both the school district and the city benefit, and there will be a presence guaranteed in our building every day, at least for a few hours. And right now, the talk is that if we provide an office, that the morning police officer will just work from here. So he'll be here at the beginning of the day, work from the office here. If he gets a call, obviously he'll have to take off and go on call. But the plan is that George or who's ever on duty will be around quite often. So see this as a win-win for us, the community, our kids, as they get to meet law enforcement and know that every interaction is not scary, as well as make sure that our doors are secure and kids are safe. So, and besides this, we're taking some measures next year too, like moving the office down there. We're going to have Lisa at that door now. So when anybody enters the building, they will be greeted by an adult. It won't be just the push the camera, walk through the building. So I think that'll be a big improvement for our building and our district here. The rest of this board meeting is pretty much a lot of insurance stuff. If you looked at the packet, there's a lot of stuff for approval. Tyler and I met with our insurance agent this morning for about an hour. Just went through our policy. Obviously, insurance is a big thing for any organization anymore, especially with weather events and stuff like that. So you are going to see the rest of our board meeting. I think about 80% of it deals with insurance. So we'll talk about those agenda items when we get there. But a lot of time this last month has went to insurance items. And then open positions, no real update from where we were last month at this time. However, Mr. Tedesco is still talking with a Spanish candidate. Tony, any updates on that?
No, earlier in the day, she messaged me and said that she asked if it would be too late to call around 7 or 8. So I would imagine I'm going to get a call even here tonight, because I said, nope, go ahead and reach me whenever. I know that they had to meet with her husband's employer, and they're looking at things just for their own situation before they make a decision. So. Okay.
So with that, right now, open positions, we have a 4th grade position open, or basically any elementary position open, because as we sit right now, our 1st grade section, our 1st graders and our 3rd graders, they have section sizes in the mid-20s. If we get the opportunity to hire and reduce those section sizes, we will try. So we're looking for an elementary teacher. And obviously right now, if you hit June and you don't have somebody hired, the chances of finding somebody is not great. But we have that high school Spanish candidate we're still talking to. And if you remember back about 3 months ago, our list of coaching vacancies, we have made a huge improvement there. We're still looking for a middle school volleyball coach. So if you know anybody who wants to coach middle school volleyball, please let us know. We'll be approving one tonight. And then when we get to basketball season, looking for a couple middle school coaches as well. But other than that, we're sitting pretty good to get the year started. So that's what I got for you this month.
Okay. Any questions?
Do we have you said about the police officer, do we have an office space for him or something figured out where he's going to go?
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yep. So right now the plan, it used to be the old activities director office.
Okay.
So you walk in that east door, you're going to have Brianna and Mr. Tedesco right there. By the way, we're changing those old exterior windows that are there. Those are coming out. We're going to have a roll cage there. So, and a counter. So that'll be updated. And then that office on the other side, that'll basically be Lakeview Police Department.
Okay.
And they'll be able to work from there when they can.
Sounds good.
Is that agreement something for next
month? I'm planning to bring it to the board in July.
Okay.
George has already discussed it with the city, and we have it drafted, but we're looking for July approval on that.
All right, then I think we will move on to action items. So first up is the consent agenda.
Couple things in the consent agenda. Obviously, this time of year we have bids for bread, milk, and propane. Those are listed on the PowerPoint up here and also in your board packet. On the bids we received back and who submitted them.
I know we used Anderson Erickson before, and I remember Bimbo Bakeries, correct? Have we
Yep.
used on the propane, I think we had Dallas Corner at one time, I'm not sure, but have we used Johnson Propane before?
Last couple of years, I think.
That's who we have now.
That's who currently holds the contract is Johnson.
Okay. Any questions on those? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept all three bids as listed and as a propane, the Johnson propane.
Second,
Okay,
And the
just
consent agenda.
real quick to clarify, is that including all of the consent agenda items or just for the bread, milk, and fuel bids?
Just bread, milk, and propane.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll come back. We have a motion and a second to approve the bread, milk, and fuel bids. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Approve everything.
And then we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is
So
there a
moved.
second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
One note on that consent agenda, as you guys saw in the packet, was just the update in the fee structure as well. Very minor increases on a few of the nutrition-related items, and this recommendation was by Lori. So, and in the last year, we have seen our nutrition balance come down a little bit. And when we asked why, cost of food is just higher for everybody. So, just some really minimal increases there on a few of our nutrition related items. And then the only increase that we saw as far as athletic passes go was just increasing that family pass $25 to $200. We surveyed the conference and most family passes were in excess of $200. So we sought approval for that. So just minor increases on a few fees, but most things stayed the same. All right. 6.2. Ready for 6.2?
I am ready for 6.2.
All right.
Pepsi agreement.
Pepsi agreement.
I'm just going to kind of let you roll with these.
That's fine. So we've had some discussion with Pepsi and Coke on what would be a good fit for our district. Since I've been here, the school has not been involved in any contracts. But when Eric McCullough became the AD and Steph started running the concession stands, it was brought up that, hey, there are companies that will give us money if we use their products. And most schools do that. So they looked into both Coke and Pepsi. The agreement that they would like to see approved is one with Pepsi. It's a 5-year deal. Over the 5 years, we can look at about $5,000 in cash being returned to the school district from Pepsi. Free Gatorade to our sports teams. Probably the most important thing for Steph is the product will be delivered to the concession stands. So we will not be hauling it around and having to deliver it ourselves. Margin of pop sales will be a little bit better for the district, and much easier ordering process for Steph as the concession stand manager. So that's the summary of what a contract with Pepsi will get the school district.
I don't have any concerns with that. It seems to make sense.
Yep.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. If there's no other discussion,
I didn't know how you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the Pepsi agreement.
Second.
motion and a second to approve the Pepsi agreement. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
6.3, this is a sharing agreement similar to what we just talked about with the SRO with Iowa Central Community College. The state has set this up for a few different reasons. that if a community college has counselors that can be shared among school districts to help our students participate in college classes, they're putting them in the schools. So what this sharing agreement really does is they ask us to pay approximately about 1/5 of his salary, which is the funding we get for 2 students. So this is part of our sharing dollars. Sharing dollars we get from the state. So so basically, if we approve this agreement, this guy comes 1 day a week, works with Taylor, and works with our students on registering and making sure all of their online classes are where they're supposed to be, talks to kids who aren't doing well, reminds them to do better on turning stuff in, stuff like that. And really, it doesn't cost us anything. So it's part of the sharing agreement, dollars we receive. It does not count towards our cap of 25. This is kind of one of the governor's initiatives that was put in a few years ago, and now we're just going to pay our part.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Is this just how many years? A 1-year agreement?
1-year agreement.
Okay.
So prior to this year, the community colleges were funding this whole thing. But then there was a change at the state level that made it sharing eligible. So now school districts are going to pay their portion.
Okay. Any questions or further discussion on that?
I move to approve the ICC counselor sharing agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the Iowa Central Counselor Sharing Agreement. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, 6.4 involves the high school parking lot light project. As discussed previously, and I think Dale even brought it to our attention at one board meeting, that our new parking lot didn't have lights in it. And we were aware of that. For whatever reason, at the time the parking lot was poured, lights were not installed. But we're to the point with liability, and we have the capital project funds to do it, that we're going to recommend that we install 9 light poles. If you look at your board packet, 3 of them will kind of be in those retention ponds, and 6 of them will be installed on top of the concrete. In order for this to happen, King Construction would need to do some work as far as finding the conduit that was put underneath the concrete, and dig up a small area to get to that conduit, and then we'd place the bases for the poles, get those up, get those wired in there, and then King Construction will fix the holes that they have to dig to put in the bases. So total cost, looking at $84,600 in that ballpark. This is a capital projects expense. Will include 9 light poles, bases, wiring, labor, concrete work, and patches.
I think we've talked about this for a while.
Is this gonna be done before school starts? Or
It
kind of
will
what's the
be,
timeline?
yep, the
Okay.
plan is this month, possibly in the next month. Matt said the light poles were 4 to 6 weeks out, but I believe he was planning ahead on this. And so I think once this is approved tonight, we'll get everything in motion.
Any concerns from the buildings committee or anything like that?
I don't have any, it needs to be done, so let's get it done.
Okay, any other questions?
I can make a motion to approve the high school parking lot project at the $84,611.81.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the bids for the high school parking lot light project. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, now we're gonna get to some insurance stuff. So last year, the school district bought insurance to cover the 1% wind and hail deductible. And as it's storming right now, there was lots of reasons for that. If anyone remembers last year, the number of weather events in Iowa was far more significant than there has been this year. But as part of that, EMC went to this 1% wind and hail deductible.
Yeah.
Huh?
This is,
This is break.
Oh, this is a break fix. That's 6.5. Okay. Is 6.5 the break fix?
yes.
Okay, so let's talk about break fix first. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. All right, 6.5 is especially underwriter equipment breakdown renewal. Our premium last year was $6,888. Premium for this year is $62,708. This covers our computers, anything that plugs in the wall, and our copy machines. The data that we've gotten back from our agent, he communicates with Tyler a couple times a year, is we're doing a nice job utilizing the policy. And if you remember from last year, this is a management fund expense that gets reimbursed into the general fund. So we would recommend continuing with that policy.
How much, we spent 62 last year, or 60, I guess,
60.
61. How much of that did we get back? Roughly, I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say, we've gotten a lot back, but kind of the problem is that we're like 3 or 4 months behind right now.
okay,
So it takes us a while to get everything set, put together, then we
Right.
submit it, and then it takes them a month to review it, and then they send us a check.
okay.
So,
Mid-year, we were right about 100%, correct?
yeah.
Mid-year, we were at 100%.
And
Okay.
it didn't increase this very much this year because that's kind of where we were at. But our agent was thinking if we keep on submitting stuff till the end of the year, we're going to end up getting more back than we put in, which is probably going to cause next year's, not
To go
next
up.
year's, but
Okay.
the year after that to go up. So, but yeah, it's working out pretty well.
And I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with it. I moved to approve specialty underwriter equipment breakdown renewal.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the specialty underwriter equipment breakdown renewal. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right. So we're still talking about breakdown insurance. So 6.6 is specialty underwriters as well. So the same process when we were talking about computers and copiers and anything that plugs in. So they also offer insurance that covers HVAC systems, freezers and coolers, and even our lawn equipment if we wanted. Last year when we were shopping, we got a quote for everything, and we elected to only do the technology items. In talking with our agent this year, just with some options related to our HVAC service calls and stuff like that, they sell a policy that covers our HVAC systems. When we got the quote for this, they base it on square footage of a building. Okay, they don't go into how old your units are or how many units you have. It's just based on how big your building is in square footage. So I had Tyler look up some information, and within the last year, we've spent about $30,000 on service calls to Carroll Control and other vendors because either the air doesn't work or the heat doesn't work or something's going on. If we were to purchase this insurance, your premium is going to be right around $60,000, but that covers all your service calls, and it will cover preventative maintenance. So if Scott is replacing filters, we can bill his time back for that. Or if we outsource that to Carroll Control, we can bill their time back for that. And probably the most important thing after our discussion with De Novo, okay, is this covers equipment. So in the event we have a giant rooftop unit go down at the elementary that might be super old, then this insurance would cover the cost or part of the cost of that based on its age.
Does it work the same way, management fund, and then reimbursement goes back to general fund?
Yes.
I don't know, we might have to ask them about that. But like if the rooftop unit went out, I wonder if that would go back to Pebble. Because that's where we're going to replace it from.
Okay. I'm not 100% sure, but I
But yeah, changing
Believe-
filters and stuff, that would come out of general fund and go back, reimbursed to general fund.
I guess for me, it's a management fund expense versus when we pay Carroll Control right now, it's coming out of capital projects. And we know that those funds are tight. So this would be a way that we could use some management fund dollars on insurance, and then it's the same process as the other one.
Well, I don't have a problem for trying it for a year or two, see if it works out. So I'll make the motion to approve specialty underwriter HVAC breakdown insurance.
I'll second it.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the specialty underwriter HVAC breakdown insurance. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, this is what I was talking about before I realized that we were on the wrong item. So last year EMC instituted that 1% wind and hail, and for our district and what we're insured for, roughly would mean that 1% of our deductibles are around $260,000. So last year our agent found another company that would buy that down in case we had storms. Luckily, we didn't really have any storms that involved wind or hail this last year. But our cost in that insurance last year was about $22,000 with a different carrier. This year, Jester Insurance they came up with an idea where if school districts now have the option, instead of paying an insurance company to kind of self-fund this 1% wind and hail. So as of last week, 165 districts in the state have elected to buy this coverage from them. And what it's kind of a costing pool. So our contribution this year would be $20,000 and some change. And what that would do is if we have a weather event, instead of coming up with $260,000, we would have insurance that makes that $5,000 deductible. And school districts are sharing funds to do that. So the hope is in future years that our contribution goes down as more districts pay into it and there's less weather events than there was last year. So,
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this per event too, rather than per, like, the way it is now, we'd have to pay 1% for this building, 1% for that building.
yes,
But this would be per event,
per event. So
it's a little bit better in that.
That's a lot better.
better
Mhm.
coverage than what we even had last year.
Is this, and you probably said this, is the pool just Iowa schools?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Now, just a little background information. So EMC and Jester are partner companies. So EMC instituted the 1% wind and hail, changed the policies. Jester came up with a solution for school districts to help with that.
Yes.
So
The only reason I ask that is because, if you have a weather event and it's all in the same location and we have all Iowa school districts, the fund could get completed really quickly if you had events, but I think everybody's,
They purchase reinsurance.
They do.
In case they run out of money.
okay,
So
perfect.
that shouldn't be if they run out, shouldn't be a concern.
Great. I don't have any other questions.
I say we go for it.
I'll make a motion to approve the wind and hail risk pool participation.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve the wind and hail risk pool participation. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hopefully we're not getting hit right now.
it's running out.
Radar
does not
look good.
I know.
6.8 is to renew our EMC insurance policy for the upcoming year, 2025-26. Looking at a 14% increase overall. There were certain parts of the policy that went up quite a bit, such as the linebacker and workman's comp. And those were areas, it wasn't necessarily something that East Sac had going on. It was just a statewide increase according to our agent. This was the same percent that we saw down at Arweva, just for comparison purposes. So last year, our total premium was $401,797. This year, our quoted premium is $458,231. Just so you know, that cost up there does include the 1% wind and hail that we just approved. That's included in that total cost because we paid it last year. We just want apples to apples this year. So she said our claims are average, and I don't know, Tyler, anything you took away from our hour meeting today? So
Well, we
I don't
can't,
know if we
we can't
have
go,
a choice.
can't have school without this insurance. I hate paying it, but it's a need, so.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the EMC insurance renewal.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the EMC insurance renewal. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
okay, 6.9. This is a contract with the AEA, and what this is, it's a support contract that helps out Robert and Your Tech. So we obviously buy our technology agreement through Robert and Your Tech, and it's works very well for the district, and that's great. This is in case Robert needs help. So that the Prairie Lakes AEA has a guy who his name's Scott Forcine, and he knows everything there is to know about school districts and tech needs in case Robert doesn't have knowledge in an area. And the biggest thing he helps Robert with is E-rate assistance. So as a school district, we can E-rate items, and there's a process to that. Scott helps with that. So this is a $2,000 contract that will help support Robert and Your Tech with our technology needs.
Questions or follow-up? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the school systems engineer contract with the AEA. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, 6.10. This is something that's new due to a law change from last year. So House File 2612 that was passed last year, that was the file that kind of demolished the AEAs. Part of that was last year, all special education dollars flowed to the AEA. This next year, they flow to us, but we're mandated by the law that 90% of that has to be returned to the AEA. So they're just making us the fiscal agent instead of them. So what that means for us is the dollars that the AEA received last year were similar to the total of what you see on the screen. This next year, our portion is $32,419 that we just retain, and that would have went to the AEA last year. 90% of that is $291,771, and Tyler will receive that from the state, and we legally have to turn it over to the AEA. And in order to do that, they have a contract that we have to approve.
Well, we get to keep some. That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Yeah.
It can be used on special education students. Also, there is talk that could probably be used to support the salary of our special education director, which we have. So that's a good thing as well, too.
I'll move to approve the contract for transfer of state funding with Prairie Lakes AEA.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the contract for the transfer of state funding with the AEA. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right. 6.11. This is going to be the IASB legislative priorities. This is an annual thing, as you probably all remember, that gets done in the summer. IASB does a good job on attempting to help legislators see what's important in school districts. And with that, legislators legislate, and then laws are passed, and we do our best job to make sense of what's happening. The priorities this year, the IASB came up with 8. The priorities are listed up there, and then in the parentheses is basically kind of what I think they're getting to with each one. So if you look at this, the first one, we believe that literacy is the building block for student achievement and student success. We all agree that literacy is important, and I believe that they are getting at adequate academic funding with that one. 2, we believe that high quality teacher workforce is necessary for student achievement. What they're getting to here is anytime there's a shortage on any professional, people look at, well, what does it take to become a professional? And so that what they're getting to here is just making sure that our teachers are fully licensed and should be in a classroom instead of applying for a teaching license and being granted one just because they applied. So they want to maintain the license criteria that's out there. 3, expanded opportunities through public schools that provide students with the diverse and engaging educational experiences. This is, public school versus private school funding. 4, believe that student, educator, and staff mental health needs must be addressed and supported to improve student achievement, reduce dropout rates, and maintain high quality workforce. Basically a funding avenue for mental health. This has come up the last couple of years. We haven't really seen any action there on that one. 5, this one's new, I think. So Iowa school boards are elected by our communities to oversee public schools, working closely with parents, communities, and educators. Our locally elected school boards are in the best position to determine the needs of our communities and students. So I took that as less laws, more local control. That this school board should be the ones determining policy and how money is spent versus a state level. So that's what they're getting to there. 6, we believe schools must maintain an opening, welcoming, and be welcoming to all students and fully accountable to receive taxpayer dollars. Again, that's a public school, private school thing for sure. 7, believe supplemental state aid is a crucial component to the success of our school districts, promoting for higher state supplement money. And 8, that every student deserves to learn, every staff member deserves to work in a safe, secure environment. So increase in school safety funding. So when we go to present these, or when I go to put these in for our priorities, I have to identify the top 4. So does the board have a preference or any discussion on where ESAC sits as far as these 8 priorities go and what we believe is the most important for our community and our kids?
We need to get more money so we can spend more money. And we need to keep the kids safe, so the last ones that didn't work for me.
I also like the
Number-
one local
Number
control.
7, the SSA, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Number 7 is
7 and
money.
8 for school safety funding.
8 safety. Mark's saying local control. That's 5. So I got 7, 8, and 5. 6 and 3 are pretty much the same with the public school versus private school type deal.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling on that is it kind of sailed. They decided to fund private schools. I don't think they're gonna take that back anytime soon. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't approve of it, but I don't know. You can make it a priority, but
Number 6 would be the one that would tie closest into that, because if they are going to fund them, they have to function the same way. public schools do.
I agree with
So,
that. Yeah,
I,
I agree with that.
I kind of feel like since we're close to a larger public school, I mean that, or a private school, sorry, that does impact us.
They're allowed to take students that they wish to take and
Mhm.
tell others that there's no room.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, I got 7, 8, 5, and 6. Just need a
Okay.
motion in a second to approve those as your priorities.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the legislative priorities. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Handbooks.
6.12 is the handbooks, bringing those to you in June this year because there wasn't a state, we weren't waiting on state guidance this year, which was kind of a nice thing. So included in the board packet were the handbooks for review. There were slight changes made on all the handbooks. Probably most notable in the employee handbook, we updated some language around maternity leave. There used to be some limitations in there on how many weeks a staff member could take. We removed those limitations to allow up to 12 weeks for the birth of a child. But the one thing with education, maternity leave is only paid if they have accrued those days. Sick time, personal sick or family sick. So that's in there. So we basically removed the limitations on, it used to state 6 weeks for a normal birth and was it 8 weeks for one with complications. We just pretty much removed that because there was, the next sentence was, and 12 weeks with a doctor's note. Well, in today's society, if a mother wants a doctor's note for the birth of a child, she's probably going to get one. So we just cleaned that language up a little bit. And probably the other most notable thing that was in the main handbook was for our hourly positions, they are going to accrue paid leave quarterly instead of all at the beginning. Unfortunately, we had a few things come up this year where we had people hired in August that exhausted all of their sick leave and all of their paid leave and then quit by October. So what this does is our employees will receive the same number of days they've always received, but they will earn them over time instead of all at the beginning. And someone who's been here for a long time already has a huge bankroll of days that they haven't spent yet and that's available to them. So basically it would affect our hourly employees that are new to the district for 1 year. Anything else in the main handbook, Tyler?
I changed so that W-2s get sent out electronically. It was a big headache this year, stuffing envelopes and worrying that I missed one or stuffed two into the same envelope. So that's something that a lot of people do. So we'll do that this year.
Mr. Tedesco, are you ready to talk about the 712 handbook?
Yep. You want me to go through every change or anything specific, or?
I would say discuss the big ones, the ones that the board members might hear about.
Okay. I'll scroll down then. I mean, I imagine the cell phone one's going to be the biggest one.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yep. Hold on, let me get there first. So I believe it's on page 21. Basically, the language is very similar to what I had put in a previous board report. If you kind of look in there, then it's all in green, everything that I had changed, which is basically the entire section. There will be a cell phone free environment from 8:15 to 3:15, so that's not just taken away from passing periods, but also during lunch. I mean, you know, I didn't talk about the reasons in there, but, you know, we could go through mental health and, you know, not having one less form of what could be kind of harassment or bullying happening, you know, from cyberbullying. You know, I mean, and then like I said, during the class time, the state wants the no distractions anyway. So, you know, having this language in there and then just kind of having what should be if a student isn't following along with the guidelines. And I don't have any place that the phones need to be, like we're not going to have a designated spot. What I'm going to tell kids is, you know, it could be in your computer bag, it could be in your locker. We just don't want to see them. Otherwise, what we're going to go through is the first offense would be it's going to go into the office. Can be picked up at the end of the day, but then the parents will be notified and the student's going to have to bring it up the next 5 consecutive days on their first offense. On the second offense, parents will be notified, they'll have to come get it. And then it'll be up they have to bring it up to the office for the remainder of the semester. And then just the rest of that is kind of the language of what would happen if a kid wasn't following through with it, what type of referral. That would be the same thing with any kind of thing they don't follow through with in the handbook. But that's the general of the phone policy. I included headphones and earbuds because I also wanted, you know, saying that would not be allowed, but I wanted to include a section about if a teacher had them watching a video on their computers, you know, that'd be the time where they could. and added in that they could do that during study halls if they had something that was actually classroom related and again hooked up to their computer, not their phone. As per the state policy, I had to include something that talked about how they could get in touch with or have updates for their kids. So that was the next part that I had. Calling the office is generally, you can read through that one if you have any questions, but that's basically what it states. And then, we would have JMC messages for any bigger things that can be sent out to be for notification purposes to families. An exception for health reasons. If there's a documented medical reason from a medical physician, and then we would also at that time be working through and having a health claim for the kid anyway. And that would be one of the times where there'd be exception. I believe that's something that was talked about at a previous board meeting too, where I got a question asked. And that was actually language from the state that we only slightly modified, that they said to have for those things too. So I added in a very specific thing about restroom or locker room recordings. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that should be understood, but we wanted to have it in writing. So you can look at that one, no video capture photograph in the locker rooms. And then they had a little extended one below that because I'm including even after school hours. If a kid gets caught doing that on our school grounds in the locker rooms or the bathrooms. So any questions or comments with all of that as you look through it and I talk through it?
No, I appreciate the adjustment in there for the study hall, just to be clear on that. I had emailed earlier today just to ask about that.
Yeah, Mr. Himmler forwarded that to me and I was able to get it in there after our final session of the day and before we went out to eat. So.
All right, Tony, just want to just highlight a few others, big changes, and that should be good.
Okay, so let's see, credits would be another big one. So that'd be on page 9. Jackie, another thing that you had emailed Mr. Himmler, I put in the previous one was, instead of saying like that it would refer back to the previous one, to actually include what it was. But that's the credit requirements going to 54, with the specifics listed on there as well of what would be required electives. I think that kind of gives us a good mixture of making sure that they have some career and technical educational classes, the CTE classes, and something with fine arts as well, and health and personal finance. But I also included some language in there about how many classes kids should be taking, because I figure like even with my seniors, I want them, there should be a minimum that they're taking no matter what grade level we're at too. So I had that included in there too. Taking at least 6 full-time subjects. That's excluding PE, so they could have 7. And that's the minimum. And then that's more stated for seniors because they could have the 1 period of open campus. And then I had language for school to careers, because if they had 4 class periods, we're going to count that as 2 electives, 2 credits worth of electives. So again, that's probably one of the other big ones. There's some language changes to the National Honor Society. That's not really, it's very similar to what we've done before. We're trying to be as specific as we can about the service hours and what they need for that. I had included our online course recovery for the 7th and 8th grade that we started working on, and making sure those students hit the standards before they move on. For those that are struggling, we're going to try to catch it early on within the school year, but that's got everything listed in there. We started doing this. It's kind of a program that they had done in the past, and this is the way that we want to run it, and we think it'll be very good for the kids. If anybody has any questions as they look through that. I don't know if there's anything else, Nate, you want me to cover?
No, I think that's good. It was all in the board packet and on your report. So I just know that cell phone policy is going to be a big change for this building. And the only thing I would add in support to the direction that the school district's going here is that a lot of schools around us adopted similar policies to get in front of what the governor was potentially going to do. And I have not heard, even if you watch like the kids that get interviewed on the news, they say the first 2 weeks it's terrible. And then And then I actually talked to my friends now. So I believe there was success at Newell Fonda, at Carroll, at Arweva, with less screen time for kids. And I see that as a good thing overall for the well-being of our kids. So.
Yep, and the two principals I've been in the most contact with even recently, up there at Newell Fonda and South Central County, both just talked about how great it was to have more social interaction, like face-to-face with the kids too. And so they didn't have a negative thing to say about it.
Mrs. Helber, you kind of already talked about your
very limited. Small
your
changes.
your update was basically pertaining to the standards-based grading going forward.
Yep.
Which was a nice comment about listening to the SIAC committee, because that was the thing that was brought up, that sometimes we're looking at E's and P's versus 1s and 2s, and now it's going to be consistent.
Yes.
So, and then preschool handbook,
No changes.
no changes to preschool handbook. So just seek approval to, for all of our handbooks, employees all the way to preschoolers for the 25-26 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve all staff and student handbooks. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, I think that means we're on to personnel.
Personnel items, and as you can see, there's a few extra things this month. We had approved new positions to the Schedule B, talk about substitute pay, and then resignations and offers like we always do. The first part pertains to our CTE classes. So 2 of them already have student organizations. Our Steph's classes has FCCLA, okay, and Ag Department has FFA. And part of the requirement for these CTE classes is that they have student-led organizations. So that leaves our business department and our industrial technology department to basically start and implement student-led organizations. Those teachers had a compelling point that if you're going to require us to be the leaders of these organizations, that we should be compensated for that, similar to FFA and FCCLA. So these organizations probably won't be as big or in depth as FCCLA and FFA, but yet it would create positions for FBLA, and that's business, and then industrial technology sponsor, that'd be Eric out in the shop. So adding those to Schedule B. Substitute teacher pay, our current rate is $140. It's been that at least the last 2 years since I've been here. Recommendation is to move that up to $150 per day. And then 7-3 and 7-4 resignations for this month. An associate and middle school boys basketball coach, Mar Cruz from the elementary. Amanda Hankey, a high school associate. Cassandra Shackner, high school associate. Kara Wellington, concession stand manager. She was a Sac City concession stand manager. And Mike Bobble for boys golf. Contract offers. This next one is a TLC position that we had last year, but it did not make the paperwork for the last board meeting, so we're approving it this month. Lisa Keys as MTSS coordinator, literacy coach. And then new contracts offered. Carrie Mailer for junior high volleyball. This is one of the 2, so we're still looking for another one in addition to Carrie. Cindy Wilkie for high school girls wrestling. Callie Stone, assistant concession stand manager. So basically would be taking over the Sac City part. But if you see down at the bottom, there's going to be a contract adjustment for Steph. So this last year we had Lakeview, Wall Lake was one position, and Sac City was the other. And they were both kind of both managers of the locations. Going forward, Steph is going to do all the ordering for the entire district. And so it'd be creating the assistant concession stand manager job, which was the Sac City position, and then doing a contract adjustment for Steph, increasing her salary a little bit for that manager type position. So Callie Stone, Assistant Concession Stand Manager, kind of for the Sac City location, Sac City concession stands. Charlie Veit, Assistant Boys Wrestling Coach. Jody Reese for National Honor Society. Crystal Pudens, co-FBLA sponsor. That goes up to the new positions in Schedule B. Stacy Anderson, co-FBLA sponsor. Eric McCullough, Industrial Technology sponsor. Terry Van Way, co-football cheerleading coach. And Lindsay Pope, co-football cheerleading coach. You may have remembered our cheerleading advisor resigned last month. We had these two individuals that really want to see our cheerleading program expand and have our girls practice. And so Eric interviewed both of them. And in his eyes, they were both really good candidates, and they know each other and they want to work together, so they're willing to split the contract. And if football goes well and they have girls that want to participate in basketball, they are both interested in continuing into basketball as well, if we have girls that want to go out. And then volunteer coach at the bottom would be Emerson Mack. She just received her coaching license, and she'd like to help Eric learn about middle school softball. Eric is very in favor of the help.
Okay, any questions on any of those?
No.
All right. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel items
Second.
all listed up there.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve all personnel items. Everyone that's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, meeting date?
Now, being that this meeting had tons of agenda items on it, July does not look like there's a whole lot going on, which is okay. The scheduled date for the July meeting would be July 21st. And at this point, there may be some personnel items and paying bills, but that would probably be about it. So.
Okay. Any other items for the agenda changes?
That date work?
Yeah.
Works for me,
The only thing would be look to bring the 28E agreement with the city of Lakeview for the SRO would be part of that meeting too.
And potentially reviewing the capital or the PEPAL accounts, if that
Yeah.
summary is ready?
Yep.
Okay. If we have time. That meeting. Okay, anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All of those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.